Hey, welcome back, everybody, especially to the gentlemen in our humorously titled Mansplaining group on Discord. Uh, week 2, I guess. We aren't necessarily planning on doing week to week, but it looks like as of right now, we're going to get 2 weeks in a row, which is pretty awesome. Something that is hard to do in the modern context, keep a group going on a weekly basis. Anybody who has done life groups at church or tried to play tabletop RPGs week to week is difficult. That being said, as I explained last week, this is predominantly for those who will be participating in our Discord mentoring group, but I'm hoping that the content's useful to somebody somewhere else who may or may not stumble across this. If it is, awesome. If it's not, it's still going to serve the purpose that I have established for it, which is helping me and these men of God grow as men and as of God. I don't want this video to be as long as last week, so I'm going to jump straight into it. Just we're going to pick up where I left off. We had a great conversation. For those who were in it, you know that we did. For those that weren't, just trust that I'm not making that up. We had a great conversation, lasted a little bit over an hour. And during the week, some questions came up about the Genesis 1, Genesis 2 stuff, and so I've referred those gentlemen back to the first video, and I just want to continue that conversation here in this second video. So this is kind of part 2 of the introduction, if I can say it that way. That being said, I actually have a Bible open this time, and I'm not quoting things from memory, so let me just read some stuff to you. Reading from the Berean Standard Bible, which was, that's a whole conversation. That being said, Genesis 1:26. It says this: Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, to rule." ... Verse 27. So, in that context, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. If you look at that through several translations, it won't necessarily say that God created man in his own image and created him. It will say he created them in both. There's a fun, as I said last week, there's a whole lot to be unpacked in that. Just remember that that's not talking about God created male. It's talking about God created the species called humanity, because the context of Genesis 1 is the conception and realization of everything in the natural universe being expressed through just a few verses. So we see the creation of light. We see the creation of as something separate from uncreated light. Then we see the creation of planets and stars, and then specifically the earth, and then da-da-da. The creatures that fill the earth, and then we get to the 6th day. God creates the human species to take charge or have rule over everything verses 1 through 25 have described, in short. That being said, you get over into chapter 2, and it realistically, in my opinion, the 7th day, which is Genesis 2:1, 1, 2, 3, probably should have been a part of Genesis 1. I get why it's not in some ways, but I say that to say, when you move it to Genesis chapter 2:1, what happens there, instead of it continuing Genesis 1:28 and 29, 30, whatever, is it causes people's brain to close the book on chapter 1 and open the book on chapter 2 and read them as separate, and they are not. They're one flow. I say that to say, one of the questions that came up during this week is, I'll read here, and the New King James, Genesis 2:1, "Thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished." Well, and all the host of them is a very loaded sentence. And the question was, well, what does that mean? And the answer is we don't know.
That's why I kind of appreciate, as far as for simplicity's sake, the Berean Standard Bible doesn't even talk about that. It says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array." Now, that's an incomplete presentation of the text, and all the host of them is an important part of the text, but it just creates a lot of conversations that we really can't answer, except to say this: the word host typically meant one of two things in both the Hebrew and the Greek. When you get to the Septuagint and stuff like that, that's a whole other conversation. Simply put, it either means a mass of things or a mass of people. So, thus the heavens and the earth were completed. Well, let's get back over to the King James really quick. Thus the heavens and the earth and all of the things and people within those heavens and earth were finished. What's fun about this is that the word usually was contextualized, when speaking of people at least, as a military term. This is why the hosts of heaven, the angels, are considered warring or warfare beings in all their contexts. Every time you see the Lord of hosts, it's talking about the Lord of heaven's armies. Most people would agree with that statement in some measure. So, thus the heavens and the earth and all of the armies of them were finished. What this tells us, at its simplest, not complete, at its simplest, is that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Is purposed towards the armies of heavens and the earth accomplishing something. So when you get to Genesis 26, let us make man in our image. Genesis 27, Genesis 26, let us create man in our image and in our likeness. Let them have dominion, or let them rule, or let them reign over the created thing. Genesis 2:1 solidifies that that's not poetic language, but it is militaristic language. There is a warfare happening that it contextualizes creation as a thing, or as a purpose for a warfare. Why there needed to be war, we can't necessarily answer specifically. We can surmise some things, and Genesis 1 and 2 have a whole lot of stuff in the Hebrew and the Greek and in the history and in rabbinical texts and things like that can be talked about. But what is almost undeniable, using the language, is that God created mankind to have dominion over everything he created, and everything he created was purposed as a mass of things and beings to be conceived and perceived as a militaristic force, which is cool. I say that to say, when you then get down to Genesis 2, let me make sure I find it right, 18, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make a helper comparable to him. Well, why is it not good for a perfect being in a perfect place to be alone with a perfect God? Because that man is going to be sent from that perfect place to accomplish, to impose that perfection on an imperfect world. Because the command to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth to subdue it means that this creation that was designed for warfare now has to impose that warfare on whatever part of creation is not yet subservient to the one who created these beings and these creatures for war. So, as a final meditation, as I say to you, so why is it not good for man to be alone? Well, the answer is, in short, because man should not wage war on his own. So how do we as men begin to apply that to our lives, apply that to understanding biblical masculinity, and apply that to understanding callings and purpose in the name and nature of God through the perspective of who Jesus is, ultimately, but fundamentally through the perspective of the Genesis 1 and 2 narrative. I bless you guys in Jesus' name.